Joining me today is Carol Osbourne. It is May 12th, 2009. Thank you, Carol, for being with us today and sharing your memories. Carol, can you tell us where and when you were born?
I was born November 23rd, 1946, in New Windsor at home. Back then, the doctors would come to the house for you. And it's the last house on Church Street in New Windsor, and right by the railroad track, and the house still stands today.
Does your family still occupy that home?
No, we do not.
What jobs have you had?
Well, I worked at Westminster Sewing Factory. It was beside the fire hall, but they closed down and went out of business. So then I went to Taneytown Rubber Factory, and they closed down and went out of business. So then I went to Random House, and I worked there 20 years and retired from there.
Okay. Do you have any stories that you could share with us about how your family first came to the United States?
No. As far back as my grandparents, I just remember they've always lived in New Windsor, but I don't know how they settled there.
Can you tell us a little bit about your family?
My father was a self-employed carpenter. He worked with his brother for a while, and then he went on his own. And mother worked at a sewing factory, and I have 4 sisters, no brothers.
Can you tell us about your grandparents?
Okay, Granddaddy Wolf had a farm in New Windsor, and he unfortunately hung himself on the farm. That's how he died. And my other grandmother, I never knew my grandfather. He was dead when I was born. But she was, I don't think she ever worked. Her husband was a school teacher.
Okay. A close family, everybody?
Yes, very, very close.
And what about your sisters? They still live in the area?
I have one sister in Boring, one sister in Union Bridge, and 2 in Sykesville.
What stories have come down about your parents or your grandparents that you might be able to share with us?
Probably none I can tell.
Oh. What are some of your childhood memories growing up in the area?
Well, I lived next door. We were good friends with the Coes, and after our parents would go to work, I would go upstairs with the cat, and my neighbor would be waiting outside, and I'd throw the cat down to her. And she'd try to throw it back up to me. And of course, our parents never found out. And then my sisters and I would play outside on the swings and sing all the time. And there was another neighbor who just couldn't get enough of it. They just loved our singing and wanted us to do it all the time.
What other kind of games do you remember playing growing up?
We played softball a lot, and badminton, and catching lightning bugs, and catchers. And we always went for a walk every night, too.
What kind of toys did you play with?
Oh, man, they didn't have Barbie dolls then, but I had a doll similar to Barbie, and I named her Lou Ann. She had pretty blonde hair and a black velvet top and a blue skirt and little heels. That was my all-time favorite toy, but I don't have her anymore. And then I remember when the hula hoops came out, and we first got those. That was a trip. And then the skateboards, when that came out, my sister broke her leg when she got on it. So.
What other kind of home entertainment was there for you growing up?
We played a lot of cards because we didn't have a TV. I remember I was 12 when we first got our black and white TV, and the first show we saw was Roy Rogers. But before that, we played a lot of cards.
Okay. How are holiday traditions celebrated in your family?
Okay, we celebrate every holiday as a family. We take, this is aunts, uncles, cousins, and all that. Each one of us takes a turn and has a holiday that we celebrate together at their home. And but the biggest one is Christmas, and we always had to rent a place to have that because the family was so big. So we rented Wilhelm's, and we would have a DJ, gift exchange, and we'd all have Santa Claus come and play with kids and give out treats. But that was the major one. So this year, since they sold Wilhelm's, we have to look for something else.
Does your family hold any other kind of like reunions?
Not anymore. They did up until about 10 years ago, but kind of fell apart.
How long did you have the reunions before that?
Every year.
Every year. Any good stories you can tell us about the reunions?
No, there wasn't anything great.
What family heirlooms or keepsakes do you possess?
I have mother's ring because she always wanted one, so my husband and I got her one. So then it would be passed on to me and then passed on to my oldest daughter and so forth. And my sisters have a lot of Dad's things from Okinawa when he was in the service.
Do you remember when your dad was in the service?
No, because he came out of the service when my oldest sister was born, so I don't.
Okay. Can you describe the place, New Windsor, the area where you grew up?
I remember Strine's store because it had the wooden floors that would squeak when you walked on it, and the same way with the hardware store. They had the wooden floors too, and I love that. I didn't know I did then, but I do now when you look back. Mm-hmm. And then they had the mom and pop stores and the drugstore and Brownies. And Brownies and the drugstores where the kids would hang out after school and get your nickel Cokes and nickel bags of potato chips.
So how has the area changed?
Brownies is gone, the drugstore is gone, post office is moved, the bank's bigger. It's just not the same.
What do most of the people do in the area for a living?
There were a lot of farmers. And that's about it. A lot of farmers and factory workers.
What factories were out there?
Well, there wasn't one in New Windsor, but Mother worked at the one in Union Bridge. I think it was called Hartzler's Sewing Factory.
How did she get back and forth?
She drove. Yeah.
You were telling me about a train?
Yes! I forgot about that. When we were just little tots, the train would come by our house and it would stop in New Windsor and take you to Westminster. Because I remember Mother, when she had to sign up for unemployment, she would take us all on the train and go sign up, and then we'd come back home, and it was such a treat. We always looked forward to that.
How long of a ride was that?
Maybe 10 minutes. But it was fun.
What were your neighbors like growing up?
Neighbors were great. I had one neighbor that there was a television show on, and she was chosen queen for a day. Mrs. Copenhaver, she was so nice. But all the neighbors were nice, and you didn't lock your doors at night, and you didn't have to worry about it. There was never any trouble.
Do you have any other stories or memories that come to mind about growing up in the area?
No, not really. I think that's about it.
How have historical events affected your family or the community?
How has it affected the family?
Do you remember any experiences maybe during the wars or the civil rights movements?
No.
Okay. Go ahead. Carol, you were telling us about some of the games that you all played when you were younger, you and your sisters, and you mentioned one called Catchers. Can you tell us what that was?
It's the same as tag. It was called catchers back then. And you'd run until you tagged the person, then they were it. Then they'd have to catch someone and tag them.
Okay. And then you were also telling us about you and your sisters did a lot of singing and how the neighbors enjoyed that. Do you remember some of the songs that you sang or what was popular back then?
Let the Sun Shine In, Jesus Loves Me, and my favorite song of all, Sad Movies. I still know all the words to this day.
Can you sing some of it for us? I've never heard that one before.
Really?
Just a little bit.
Let's see. He said he had to work, so I went to the show alone. They turned down the lights and turned the projector on. And just as the news of the world started to begin, I saw my darling and my best friend walk in.
Very nice. That's nice. Do you and your sisters still get together and do any singing?
Just at family events.
You have a nice voice. You should continue to do that. Getting back to the places that you worked, you said you worked at a rubber factory?
Yeah, they made boots. That was the dirtiest job I ever had. You used cement and glue. And one time, we went on strike for more money. You know what we ended up getting? We lost 3 days' pay. We ended up getting $0.25 more an hour. I'll never forget people making fun of us. Said, maybe next time if you ask for $1, you'll get 50 cents.
Oh my
But
goodness.
it was awful.
What was
awful.
the name of that factory?
Cambridge Rubber in
And
Taneytown.
How long did you work there?
7 years.
What was the pay like at that time?
$2.19 an hour to start. Yeah. And then you could make production, you know how that goes. But I thought it was, because I got myself all the way up to $5 an hour. I was so excited.
And how long ago was that?
Oh my. Well, at least 30 years. Yeah.
And then you were telling us about Wilhelm's, where you would have
Yeah,
Christmas
that's a
parties.
catering place, and they rent the halls out for people who want to have events, and they fix the meal. And that's the best part. You don't have all that messy cleanup.
And where is that located, or was it
Oh,
located?
on 140 in Westminster.
And that's no longer.
No, they sold it.
Yeah, is there anything else that you would like to share? Anything
Yes.
Okay.
The snowstorms.
What about the snowstorms?
It's just so funny when it snows now and you have like 3 or 4 inches of snow and, oh, it's a blizzard out there. Stay in, don't go out. And then back in New Windsor, when we had snow, you'd have 4 feet of snow and then you'd have 6-foot snow drifts. The town was shut down for a week at a time, no electricity, and we'd have to get dynamite. Not me personally. They'd have to dynamite the snowbanks to open the roads. Now that's a storm. And I laugh every time they say that because I think back to what it was really like.
So other than the dynamite, how would the roads get cleared or the sidewalks? Or
Well, they would use the snowplows after they dynamited the big ones.
And the whole county would kind of pitch in?
Yes, yeah.
Did you and your sisters go out there and shovel?
Oh yeah, we shoveled sidewalks. Yes.
Anything else that comes to mind?
No, I think that's about it.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Carol, very much for sharing your memories with us.
You're quite
today.
welcome.